Hi everyone, welcome to this lesson on Cowboy's Dream by Tommy Emmanuel. While the top tier patrons roll by, a quick reminder that only the first part, maybe the first two parts of the tutorial will be released on YouTube. For full access, please head over to my Patreon page or to my brand new website. The difference between the two is made clear by means of a video on each landing page. All links are in the description alongside the link to music notes where you can get the tab and notation file. So Cowboy's Dream is on the menu for today. I'm always careful when I say this, but compared to other songs by Tommy, this one is on the easier side of things. The song is written in G6 tuning, which takes a lot of work out of your fretting hand. All chord shapes and picking patterns are very doable, that is until we reach the bridge. Tommy ups the difficulty level in the bridge with a few massive chords, but I think I managed to find a few much more doable alternatives that don't sacrifice too much of the character of the song. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, straight to playing then. The guitar is in G6 tuning. Now this is some sort of, let's call it an alternate tuning light or a semi-alternate tuning that Chet Atkins invented, and you drop down both the low E string and the low A string a full step. So you get D, G in the two bass strings and then D, G, B, E. So the top four strings are still in standard tuning, only the two bass strings are tuned down. Now throughout the tutorial I will keep referring to these two strings as the low E string and the low A string, just because we know them like that. Let's have a look at the intro. Oh, sorry, before I jump ahead, you do need a thumb pick and a capo on the second fret. I'm going to keep the capo on the guitar throughout the tutorial. A thumb pick is what Tommy uses, but it is also perfectly possible to play this tune without a thumb pick. You lose the percussive attack, but there is nothing in here in terms of technique that really requires the use of a thumb pick. So now we can dive straight into the intro. Let's have a listen first. And as you can see, that alternate tuning is taking a lot of work out of your, at least, left hand. Throughout the whole intro, you keep playing the same bass part, and it's all open strings. Open A string, sounding like a D, to an open D string, to a low E string, sounding like a low D, and back to the D string. There's only one spot where you temporarily lift that bass part, but we'll get to that in a second. Left hand fingering first bar, you start with the index finger, second fret on the G string, middle finger, third fret on the B string. And right away after the first beat, you hammer on with the ring finger to the fourth fret on the G string. This hammer on is exact eighth notes, as will most of the hammer-ons and pull-offs in the intro be. So no quick embellishment, you really time it out, 1 and 2. And on the second beat, you land the open D string. 1 and 2 and you repick the G string and B string while holding down the ring finger and the middle finger, fourth fret, third fret. And then the rest of the first bar is alternating through the bass part, E string, D string, as explained before. Then you head back to the low A string, back to the D string, and then right after the bass note on the D string, you're going to repick that same double stop, and now we're going to apply pull-offs. Again, strict eighth notes. So again, one more time, the first bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and second bar, 1 and 2 and 3. As you pull off from the ring finger back to the second fret, you land that pull off at exactly the same point that you play the low E bass note or the low D bass note on the E string. 1 and 2 and 3. Back to the second fret. And I say back to the second fret, so you haven't lifted that index finger off the G string yet. It remains there as you hammer on to the fourth fret, just sticks to the same place. Then you extend that pull off to an open string. Again, eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and. See, exactly spaced out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You shift over the index finger to the second fret on the D string, and you're going to pull off. it doesn't seem as if Tommy's making a concentrated effort to remove the muting while he's doing the pull-off. So just leave the hand where it is. There is going to be plenty of work for the picking hand as it is already. So the second bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. See, so it's really lightly muted, and all the way at the end of the fourth beat you pull off to another open string, 4 and you head back to the open A string. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Open A string, open G string, both sounding as a G. That's the start of the third bar. Let me play those first 2 bars back to back. And that muted sound on the D string, sometimes it's there when Tommy plays it, sometimes it's more or less open, so you can shift around the muting slightly to what suits your preferences. Now I removed the muting completely just to get that pull off all the way open. See what you like best. Bar number 3, 2 open strings, D string bass note, and we're still holding down the middle finger on the 3rd fret, B string, and now we're adding the ring finger 3rd fret on the high E string. This way we have a full G chord by just using 2 fingers because of the alternate tuning. Now we're going to do some strumming. As always in most Tommy Emmanuel's tunes, when he uses the thumb pick, the strumming is really lightly, just brushing against the strings. 1, 2, 3. So it's just basically with the tip of the, in my case, the middle finger, just brushing slightly across the top strings. Try to aim for the E string and B string, and if you catch the G string in one go, it all sounds in the exact same harmony of the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever you play the strumming in this section or throughout the rest of the tutorial, Tommy reverts back to a 2-string bass part. He leaves out the bass note on the D string for the most part and just plays A string and then to the E string and then back to the A string. So that's what happens here in bar 3. 1, maybe 1 bass note on the D string and then the upstroke, low E string, downstroke. Let me count along. 1, 2, 3, 4. And keeping your hand in the muted position is also going to prevent you from strumming really hard. Then the next bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the first beat, bass note, upstroke, second beat, downstroke, upstroke, third beat, just the bass note, fourth beat, another downstroke. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, play around with these strums. It's not this one thing, you can do whatever you want. Let's play those first 4 bars back to back. And now the next 4 bars are roughly the same thing with 1 variation. That was the verb, sorry, 2 variations. It's always a little bit more with Tommy. So you start the second bar the exact same way, the same hammer-on, and now we're going to do that hammer-on again, but shift the timing. First time you initiate on the beat, second time you initiate the hammer-on in between the beats. So on the beat, 1, 2, and then you repick, and you aim for the bass note on the low E string as you land the hammer-on. If I count along, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Just the bass note on the 4th beat. Back to, for the next bar, just an open A string, and then Tommy adds the pinky to the 5th fret. You sort of get that clashing double stop, a D note or a C note if you don't count in the capo, sort of rubbing shoulders against each other. Really briefly. The The rest of the bar is the exact same thing. You only add that one double stop in there right behind the first beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. The rest of the bar is the exact same thing you learned in bar number 2. Just for, let's say, the sake of covering most of the versions, in recent versions, Tommy doesn't play those two notes, he plays a muted double stop. So he does this, which leaves out, or you don't even need to put down the pinky, you can play that muted double stop just by lifting up those two fingers, middle finger, ring finger slightly, and just playing the muted strings. So if the stretch to the pinky is hard, then you can just leave it out and play the muted double stop as well. So let's say the original version, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And the more recent version, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Just playing around with those funky muted chords in there. And then again, just the same, roughly the same strums we played before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And landing on the first beat with just nothing but a bass note. If I count along with that last rhythm, you get 1, 2, and upstroke, bass note on the third beat, and down, sorry, up, down, up, before heading back to the bass string. If I count along, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. And then Tommy moves up into that first upbeat for the melody. We'll take a look at that as we head into the verse. Those last 4 bars, and then we're already done with the intro. So bars 5 to 8. And now let's try and tie everything together, the full intro one more time, really slowly, and we're ready to move into the verse. Here we go. And then we move into the verse. The verse is something for part 2 of the tutorial. See you there.